So for most of this stuff, I'm actually going to be copying pasta a little over from this stuff, because I don't really feel the need to rebuild our models, data, all that. Instead, we're going to incorporate that into the Service Fabric piece and just have it wrapped with that API. So I'm going to leave this enter notification open and just drag it over to the side. And then let's go ahead and create a new project. All right, and so we're going to create a new project. This time we're going to go with Service Fabric, and we're going to go with the Stateless Service Fabric application explicitly. So, Service Fabric, this is going to be named Notification we'll just go with service.host. So the .host is just a piece of the Service Fabric. We don't need to have the solution be the same name, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Create it. We want to do a stateless ASP.NET Core, and the service name is going to be Notification Service. And we're going to create. And I just realized I forgot to check what version of .NET Core I was building that into, but that's okay. And we're going to do with the ASP.NET Core 3.1, perfect, and we're going to do an API. I actually am going to be right back again real quick. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about the music stopping playing. I just noticed that. Let me take like 2 seconds to fix it. All right. The things to note as far as the service application goes is you have a service manifest here, which is your environmental variables. And some basic things like, hey, this is a service endpoint and it'll always display on this particular location. Good to know, useful. You can actually make it so it will assign its own port by deleting this piece here. It'll automatically pick a virtual port on your application. Next thing to note is over here in your application manifest. So any of those variables, you'll notice we have this ASP.NET Core environment. You can actually overwrite those. So we're going to say this one is dev. Now, what I'd recommend doing for yours, as far as this application goes, is using the environmental variable, setting up an environmental variable for your, setting up an environmental variable for your username. Password. SMTP server. And SMTP port. You take these guys here, you go over here. And then you can override them by doing this. Or, well, implement them more correctly in this case, because we left them assigned to nothing. So you do notification service dot, and then you want your username. We're going to do the same for this one. think I forgot to include my notification overlay on this. Thank you again, whoever just followed. I appreciate it. So we have our environmental variable set up here. You have your SMTP server port and all that. And then we can override the variables here where you do my Gmail at gmail.com. Password would be whatever password. SMTP server would be the smtp.gmail.com. SMTP port, I believe, if I'm remembering right, is 587. I can actually validate that real quick, though. No, I can't, because that's inside my database. But I think it's 587. Now, what you're going to do here is you're going to put the square brackets around these environmental variables. And you just copy this guy in there, and it'll assign this environmental variable on build to this location. Now, the beauty of these things, if you're working in a group that actually has a DevOps configured, they can overwrite all these with the DevOps build profiles and assignment profiles. So they will actually overwrite these variables depending on the environment they're going into, all that stuff. You can actually do a Azure DevOps server client on your local setup if you want to. So that's useful as well. Oh, that's why I didn't have my alert box displayed. I had it behind my display capture. That is my bad. I'm sorry. I really just created this live display for today. Up until now, I'd been using game capture. This is a display capture. That way you can see whatever I'm putting over on that monitor. So that is purely my bad, and I do apologize. We don't need weather forecast. We don't care about forecasting the weather. Nor do we care about the weather forecast controller. We're going to be making our own controller, which we're just going to call the add controller. And this is going to be a API controller. And this is actually going to be our notification controller. Notification controller. Add. You can set up your versioning here, so the route's always going to be API WAC v1 controller name. So in this case, it would be API v1 notification because it only takes the first part. Controller for handling interactions with notifications. And we're just going to add a generic real quick. So we're going to do HTTP post. And this is going to be public action result. Actually, let's go ahead and make this async. So we're going to do async. And we're going to do task action result. For those of you unaware, doing async on any of these just helps minimize how much CPU usage you're doing. And we're going to call this one post notification. And we're going to, I think I can just return OK. I might need to do task OK. So let's just do return OK. Nice. Cooperates. Perfect. So whenever you're doing asynchronous, you got to do an await, but that's something we'll handle inside of our other objects here that we're going to use. So we're going to do HTTP post. And if you want to add something to the route, like additional values or whatever, you can do HTTP post dash item. whack, quote, item 2. Then it should be able to just put in string item and string item 2. Oop. So I might have messed that up a little bit. But you can actually control your routing here by doing that. And you can... Oh, that's why it's mad at me. I messed up the order on those. So what it should be is quotes. Quotes. And then item. Quotes. Whack. And that should be item. And that needs to be $, I believe. There we go. That shouldn't need to be installed. All right, whatever. So anyways, you can use your post there to control your actual routing. I could Google how to do it real quick, but I'm less concerned about that right now than I am concerned about actually just getting this set up. And with a post, you actually post an object normally. So I'm not too concerned there. So let's go ahead and add... Actually, we're going to add a lot because we're going to be copying some stuff over. So we have our enter object that we just set up here. We're actually just going to copy the models and see if it'll let me paste them in. Perfect. Now the big thing here is we need to fix namespacing. We have all of our models that we created before. But we're going to fix the namespacing by just doing this real fast. We're going to be utilizing almost all of the code that we used for the other piece to finish off this, but this just gives us an API wrapper around it and lets us modify it. We need to replace it with the correct setup. So Control F. Why aren't you cooperating with me? Apparently 4 hours straight is a little more than my brain can handle. There we go. So we want to find that. We want to replace it with this. And we're not going to do current document. We're actually going to go with the current project. So anywhere it sees that enter notification, it's just going to replace this. And we're just going to go ahead and replace all. So replaced all 8 occurrences, which means we should be able to go into all these now and they're all configured correctly. The reason we did that is we're actually going to use our services send notification request model here. And we're going to use that request as our object on this controller here. And we're going to use caret request. And we're going to go ahead and create our response. So we're going to need a send notification response. Response equal to new send notification response. Implement it. Errors equal to new list string. And then success equal to false. method for posting a notification. And actually, I didn't set up any of those existing ones to be async, so I'm just going to do task for now. Actually, let's just do iAction result. I should do this as async. It's just, I'm running low on time and I gotta get this done. I mean, I want to give you guys all the content I can, and I can focus more on the actual API setup later. All right, so notification request with notification to post returns. Okay, with response success response for bad request with error response. All right. There we go. So we're gonna do try and a catch. Perfect. And this time, instead of having our return outside, we're actually going to enclose our return inside. Return. Okay. Quote. And we're going to do our response here. Then return status code dot status result. I believe it was status code dot. Actually, can I just return bad request? Bad. I can. Knew there was a reason I picked bad request. There we go. And response dot. We're just going to copy and paste some stuff from that previous project real quick. Services, notification service. We're just going to copy this guy here. Perfect. There we go. And we're going to include reflection. All right, so there's a basic setup of it. Now we're going to be using Autofac for this, which earlier I set up the references I need for this, so I'm going to just be using those. So the goal of this Service Fabric project is to use it as a swashbuckle to create our Swagger front end with Autofac dependency injection. And we're just going to use the Service Fabric application to host the API. So what we're adding here is the actual specific setup for our Service Fabric, where it's the Kestrel. We've got our Kestrel setup. We've got our services remoting setup. We've got diagnostics. So these are all of our individual Service Fabric pieces. Then our Newton JSON will let us serialize and deserialize objects. We're probably not going to worry too much about that. It should be relatively automatic. The swashbuckle ASP.NET is the crucial piece here, where it's going to build out our Swagger, and the Autofac dependency injection. Now, to add our Autofac to the application, you're going to come over to the notification service it created for us. And we're just going to go right here, add Autofac. All right. Now, just like that, added our Autofac. At least it should have. Unless I messed up and I need to put that on the outside. 1 second. Let's see here. You can't tell. I got the other. I had enough time to figure out all the rest of them right off the start, but I did not have enough. Add Autofac. Add Autofac is considered a method. Forgot the params. There we go. Perfect. All right, we're gonna go to our startup class. Start up for the ASP.NET Core Web API. So there's actually two different startups that this is using. We have our program, which is going to start up our Service Fabric application. And then we have our startup, which is going to be started up by the Kestrel inside this notification service and implement our API section. So, all right, let's go ahead and get this set up real quick. First of all, I prefer my configurations to be up at the top. Startup, class, configurations, injected, configurations to use. Adds controller services at runtime. To add. All right. Now in here is where we actually define our Swagger piece. So we're going to do services dot add Swagger gen quote v1. We're going to use the Microsoft Open API, new Microsoft.Open API.models. There we go. So there's our Open API info. We're going to define that. So this is just going to be the versioning. This is the first one, which we've specified a couple of different locations. Title. This is going to be the notification API. Description. API handling sending notifications to given users. All right, and then we actually need to, oh, it's mad because I haven't built yet since I made those changes earlier. So save, build, clean solution, build, rebuild solution. After doing that, I can add the Swagger gen. It's just not pulled down those NuGets yet. There we go. And now if I paste that back, oh, it's still mad. Did I misspell it? Let's go ahead and just do using Autofac for one. MVC, configuration, dependency, injection, hosting, logging, system, generic link. Yeah, it should be able to detect this. Services. Let's see if I just misspelled something. Dot add. Quote v1, comma, new, oh. Open API info. Oh. Okay. Oh, I think I forgot. Yeah, I forgot some stuff. I was way ahead of myself. So we forgot the Lambda. That's my bad. Life of me couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. Once you have this set up for one application, you really just copy paste it into the other ones. So me trying to code all of this without copying pasta is obviously working against me right now. So new.swagger doc. This is where I actually configure the, quote v1 for versioning 1 of this open API, new open API info. There we go. And we're just going to move these up. I completely goofed. And there's actually a lot of web resources out there that can provide more details on the other stuff you can use. For instance, you have things like licensing, contract. You can use extensions to extend more of it and terms of service for how your API can be used. We're not going to worry about those right now. We're just trying to get the basic setup for this to run. So var path then is going to be equal to path, which I'm going to have to use quick actions from refactoring using system.io. And we're going to combine. We're going to get the app context. Base directory, comma, notification, service, .xml, and then include XML comments. So this is going to build out our Swagger for us using that path. And before I forget, we actually need to generate that. So you come up to here for this, and you go to generate documentation file, and this will actually create a documentation file using the comments you have. So make sure you've commented everything appropriately, and it can construct the XML document for you that'll be reliant on that. Primarily, the big area to make sure you've got it is in the controller here, but that's about it. Well, that's all that they build out for the Swagger piece at least. And then your classes that you're going to be using. All right. So let me go back to startup. So we've got that built. We're going to add the default logging, though we're not going to actually add logging at all, so it's not a concern right now. Now the big part here, public void configure container builder. So this guy right here is actually Autofac container builder. Handles injection of Autofac pieces. So we're going to add all of the services that we did over for the other library, but instead of us actually setting up that Autofac module that we did, we're going to just inject the pieces here to handle all of that. The things we're not going to have to inject are basically, we're not going to have to inject the notification service because the notification service doesn't exist. Instead, it's the API. The last thing for the setup of the Swagger is to do app.useSwagger. And then app.useSwaggerUI. And we're going to set the path for the endpoint. X.SwaggerUI, there we go. Swagger endpoint. We're just going to do Swagger.json. I'm not sure if it's going to let me get by with that, but we're going to try. Comma, and And then we're going to do, this is the notification API. Voila. All right. We're not going to use authorization for this. We are going to use routing, and we're going to use static files because the Swagger, the Swashbuckle actually relies on those static files, even though it doesn't explicitly reference it. There's a lot of people who have a lot of issues with it because they don't use that piece. So, and then we need to actually comment this correctly. I'm just going to cut this and paste it in. There we go. So there's our summary XML app. Current environment. All right. So there's all that. And we're actually just going to start snagging some other stuff to get things done quickly. So here's our inner service. What do we need here? We need the data. Factories. We don't need the module. We do need the services. We already copied the models over. So let's go ahead and paste these. Okay. Now for services, we no longer need this notification service because that is being handled by the controller, so that can get deleted. So we need our SMTP service, our DB service, and our factories. We're going to do the same thing, and we're going to replace all of those old namespaces with our correct namespaces. So I'll come here, Control F, and we're going to just replace all. Yes. All right. Now, similar to how we actually had the module set up over here, where we have all of our dependency injection, we're actually going to add those dependency injections into our startup here. So we've got our piece here, and we're going to just straight up copy and paste our configurations from earlier. And the big thing is that notification service is no longer needed. And we're going to go ahead and do that. And that. Oop. There we go. Perfect. And now, similar to how we had the constructor set up in the other one, we're actually going to need to set up the constructor on our controller. And the constructor on our controller is going to handle the injection. So this is actually what our notification service has now become. And we're going to just copy these guys over to it. I know I'm being terribly lazy just doing a lot of copying, but again, I intended this for it to be at about a 4-hour stream, and we're getting really close to the end of it. So, find that as the controller. Why is it mad? Now, inconsistent accessibility. So right now it's mad because we don't have that wrapping anymore. So this is publicly available, but those aren't. And I don't know. I think saying that to internal would result in bad results. So the downside is we're going to have to expose those ones a little bit. So we come up here. We're just going to expose these pieces here. So we're going to do public for the SMTP and public for the DB. Oh no, that DB. Public for the factory. Now it's going to get mad because our models that these are built on So it's bad because these models in here are not public. So right now, all we're sufficiently hiding is our database service, but because the API is the only thing that can actually be interacted with externally, oh, it's mad because of that. So we need to set both of these to be able to be used publicly. And then we need to set the send SMTP to be able to be used publicly. And then we also need to come down to our message model. I think that's about it. Let's see how many errors we get. Yeah, it's mad over the end tags for all those. Which honestly, these end tags were wrong in the other one too. It's just, it didn't catch them because of how I was doing it. Oh, and now it's mad about this piece because we didn't. I click manage NuGet packages. Actually, we're just gonna copy pasta. So anytime you have the .NET Core, .NET Standard, you have this set up here, and we can actually just come in here, and we need both of these pieces to be able to use our dependency injection. So we're gonna snag them. And we're just gonna go here and we're gonna directly modify this piece here. And just drop them in. Now whenever we clean and rebuild, it should automatically pull that stuff for us. I think I fixed most of the internal dependencies as well. There we go. All right. So now we actually need to implement some logic here in our controller. But since that controller is basically the equivalent of what our old notification service used to be, we can actually just snag the majority of what was sent there and use that. So we just come in here, we'll do this. And that should just be fine as is. Let's make sure no errors. We're actually pretty much done with this. So let's go ahead and try running. And because I didn't run this as administrator, it's probably going to bomb out on me here. Or maybe not. So this right here is the manage for Service Fabric. There's our notification service. It's currently, yep, there we go. See there? You have to be running as administrator to be able to run that. Okay, and now let's go ahead and debug. Now, if you've got this right, it should populate a Swagger document for us where we should be able to see everything and how it looks, and then we should be able to interact with it. Thanks for the follow, Evil. I appreciate it. All right. So now it should actually be, it's in downloading the application package, it's actually able to start the launch process here. And so we're going to watch this piece here. What should happen, I can't remember how many nodes I set this up as. It's a single node. It's going to create this piece here, and it's going to continue on down. And this node right here is actually where we're going to have our link. So since we allowed it to do a virtual port, it just picks from the list of virtual ports available for Service Fabric, and it'll use one of those. So we go here, and we should be able to do Swagger. And it can't find the JSON, because I messed up the JSON routing. So let's go ahead and go fix the Swagger JSON real quick, which is just defined over here under the startup. And I want to say it's like Swagger. Which whack is it? Swagger whack v1 whack swagger.json. I think is the default. Let's go ahead and try that out. Now, whenever I do this, it's going to remove this old one, which is why it's in an error state right now. It's going to remove it, redefine a new virtual port for it, where it's going to vary most of the time when you run, which is why you need to make sure you use the reverse proxy service for most of your communications in between, especially if you're not defining ports. If you're not defining ports, there's not an effective way to do this without the reverse proxy, which the reverse proxy is just, you go to this route here. So you go to this route here, and you snag that, and you do this piece here. We're going to go ahead and just open another version of this. There we go. So instead of doing this piece here, you keep that piece the same, and then you go 19081 whack. Then you're going to snag this piece off the host here. There we go. And now that should send out to the reverse proxy. And I probably need to whack Swagger on this. There we go. So right here is the reverse proxy for pulling it up. We'll see if it actually pulls. Or if I still need to go back and redefine the route. But whenever you're using virtual ports or not defining the ports, make sure you're using this. Otherwise, you will never be able to find it, and it will change every single time you deploy the application. For now, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and go back to this. We'll just open this piece here. Oh, couldn't find. Oh, I've got too many swaggers. All right. So all I really need is this piece here, I believe. Let's try one more time. Again, we'll watch it blow out the old application and restart. And I'm probably going to remove a lot of this trial and error whenever I set this up as the YouTube tutorial, but for right now, it's okay. So let's go ahead and come back here, and we're going to hit enter. Voila! Now we actually have our post setup. So it managed to define our post. It pulls our pose. Apparently I misspelled the XML comment, which we can go validate real quick. There's our notification. Posting. Request with notification to pose. Oh, it's messed up on the model. All right. So there's the basics of that piece there. We're going to go ahead and try it out. So I'm going to move the try it out section over to the other piece. And we're going to just come in here. It should hit this and have details on our request. So we're going to make sure the request isn't null. So let's go ahead and try it out. Notification type, I'm going to leave this up for now over here. Verizon. Recipient, I'm not going to fill in right now because that is going to be my number. Testing SF API. Message. This is a test of the Service Fabric API implementation of the notification service. All right, and then I'm gonna put in my number I want to send. And execute. And we should hit. We did hit. So we're going to come down here and we're going to build the response. And apparently lose the response. I have no idea where it just went. There we go. Build the response. We got an error. Oh, invalid response from DV service for getting your credentials. So we're going to set next. F11 to get into it. There we go. Ah, god darn it. It's going to error in a second here. I'm not sure why it's... There we go. Oh. It's trying to log in as my... Login failed for user network authority service. So it's trying to log in using my network authority service instead of using the actual database setup I used. So where I define this... So I define this here, but it's not using that piece. Which it should be. I might need to actually grant network service access to that real quick. So let me go to SQL. Allow. Okay. So, yeah, I need to share the database and give network service permissions. So let's just connect in here. And let's go to our security, logins. Click new login. And we're going to just search for network. Network service, add. And I'm going to do something I probably shouldn't do, which is I'm just going to go ahead and server roles. I'm just going to set it up as a sysadmin. User mappings. We'll just give it access to that database temporarily, and can I have reader writer access? We'll just make it owner. Okay. All right. So now that we've added network service to that, let's go ahead and try this again. Oh. I might actually need to do something else. Stop. Restart. I might have just tanked my computer real quick by doing that. Yeah, it's not happy with me. Oh well, we'll go ahead and go back to this piece. Oh. There we go. I just stopped the service and didn't wait long enough for it to actually start. So we should be good now. Let's go ahead and go back out to here. By the way, kudos to this piece here. That's how I figured out the network security service piece. Yeah. Stack Overflow is your friend. All right, so... Oh, darn it. Man, I'm gonna need to edit the crap out of this stream. Oh well. All right, so should be back running. There we go. Try it out. Horizon. Subject. Test. I'm just doing fast for both of these because I just want to... Let's see out real quick. Let's go F5. I believe we set a breakpoint. There we go. 11. And this should be able to now pull. Yep, we got it. And now I should have an email. There we go. Perfect. Just got the email in, so that does work. We are good. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with me this entire time. I'm sorry if I went a little over. And for the fumbling at the end, I really only had time to actually figure out the first two projects, so Service Fabric was kind of off the top of my head. Fast context, for anybody who wants to use an environmental variable for any of this stuff, you just do environment dot get environmental variable, and you go with the name of your environmental variable that you defined over in your service manifest. Where are you, service manifest? There you are. So you just do this piece here, put that there. And by doing that, you'll catch whatever you inject in through the application manifest here. You can also overwrite that using your application parameters linked to a publish profile, but I can go into that more in depth later on. But again, I appreciate everybody who watched. You guys all have a good rest of the day, amazing tomorrow, and a great week. I'll see you next time.